Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Odd online dating podcast. My name is Craig Palmer, author of the Good, the Bad, and the Odd online dating book. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about, and listen, some viewers have asked about some different. One viewer asked, when do you introduce your kids to someone that you're involved with, right? And that's a very interesting question. So there are a couple of topics. Let me just say, good evening. Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Odd online dating podcast. My name is Craig Palmer, author of the Good, the Bad, and the Odd online dating book, right? I want to thank all my viewers on TikTok. I want to thank all the viewers on Facebook. I want to thank all the viewers on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Okay. So let's get into it. Right. So one of the viewers asked, when do you introduce um, someone to your kids? Right. So, and the conversation kind of went this way because I look at it. You have like, there's really no perfect time to introduce someone to your kids, right? So now let's be clear. A lot of it has to do with one, how old your kids are. Two, it has to do with what gender your kids are. And three, I would think how many kids you have, right? All of these things are factors, right? Because from my perspective, if you're a woman and you have three young kids, let's say you have two girls and a boy, and they're still relatively young, I'm probably as a woman going to be a little bit more cautious about introducing my child to a male suitor, right? And the reason why, good evening, Ms. Cobb, right? So I think I would be a little bit more cautious in introducing my children to a male suitor. One, because let's keep it real for a moment. There are pedophiles out there. We can't discount them. Let me just get my microphone over here properly, right? We can't discount that. So, if you're going to be involved in online dating, and I've said this before, you should, especially if you're going to have a guy around young kids, I would strongly would recommend you do your due diligence. Like, there are sites that you can go to see if the person is a pedophile, right? Because pedophiles have to be listed, and they have to present themselves and stuff like that. So I would definitely do my due diligence, right? The other thing too, it depends on how long you've been seeing the person, right? If you've been seeing the person for a month, I'm going to say 60 days. And if you have young kids, I probably wouldn't expose your kids to the person quite yet. I probably would give it more 6 months, right? As opposed, you know, hold on. So, all right, because my host is trying to get in and she can't seem to get in, right? So, let me see. Yeah, she should have gotten it. Okay. So, I would, strongly try to make certain that, you have something significant before you decide to introduce your kids to the guy, right? Because, online dating has its peaks and valleys, right? And so what happens is, you could be going hot and heavy for 90 days, right? And then you turn around and it ends. Um, why, let's say the woman did something crazy, right? Let's say the guy did something crazy or whatever, and it ends after 90 days. Now you've exposed your kids to this guy, and he's no longer around, right? And kids are such a thing where they are like, that, mommy, what happened to so and so? Or daddy, what happened to such and such? Right? So, because of that reason, I would encourage anyone, give it some time. Let's see. Does the person have staying power? Right? Because if the person doesn't have staying power, why subject your kids to that? Right? Why, have to explain to your kids, oh, she didn't work out, right? Because I'll be honest with you, it's happened to me before, right? Like, I met someone, we dated for, a couple of months, you know, and I thought, you know, it might be something, right? And then once I spent, and in fact, let me change that because this was actually the first woman I had introduced to my sons, right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's some potential here. And it's, you know what, you don't realize certain things until you really spend some time, or that person spends some time in your space, right? Because once that person spends some time in your space, you really start to get to know people when they're in your space, right? So the woman, was in my space because I was pretty much in her space most of the time. And, finally I introduced her to my sons, and, she was a neat freak, right? And I mean, I try to keep things tidy, but I'm definitely not a neat freak, especially not with young kids. Like I could tell you, I'll go days with laundry, clean laundry on my couch that need to be folded, right? I'll have, a couple of pairs of sneakers in my living room, because sometimes if you want to run out to the mailbox, I don't want to have to come all the way to my bedroom to get some sneakers. I'll just put on some sneakers that I have in the living room. So anyway, she was a neat freak, and wanted to debate me why I had sneakers in my living room. Right? She wanted to debate me why I had a bowl, a dirty bowl in my sink. You know what I mean? Like, and so you know, things started popping up, and I realized like this is not going to work, right? So this happens, right? And so, you have to understand that sometimes everything that appears that is going to be great, sometimes things pop up and you realize that there isn't a compatibility, right? And even though you might have been compatible in some other areas, there are other areas that are deal breakers, right? Because from a guy standpoint, and I'm sure there are a lot of women out there as well who are looking to protect their peace, right? Like, I'm very protective of my peace, right? Like, I don't like drama, right? I don't argue. I don't like drama, right? So if I'm not going to argue with someone, right? And there's some women out there who love to argue. I ain't going to say who, my daughter's mother, right? She loved to argue. And I'm the opposite. I don't argue. So, you can say whatever you want. I'm going to agree with you. I'm gonna be like, whatever you say, right? And that used to drive her nuts, right? Because I would not engage in arguing, right? And so there are some women that after, they stress their point, right? And let's just say you agree with their point, right? You're like, okay, fair point. they want to continue because they feel as though you're being dismissive, right? And there's nothing wrong with keeping the peace, right? So, from a guy's standpoint, what's there to argue about, right? Especially when it comes to online dating, because remember, if you're dating someone online, in all likelihood, you don't live together, your finances are not merged together, you don't have kids together. When you spend time with someone, quite honestly, you're supposed to be enjoying that person, right? I would think. So, what do you have to argue about? Right? But there's someone that want to argue about stuff. Oh, you didn't get to me sooner. And like for instance, I'll give you an example. Right? Last night I was watching um, Love Is Blind. Right? And there's this couple on Love Is Blind. Right? And I bring this up because, like I said, there's sometimes women that want to argue about things, and you're like, what are we arguing about, right? So in the show, right? I don't remember the episode, but that's not important. But let me just explain what happened on the episode, right? So now the guy that he's supposedly, in love with this woman, they're supposed to get married or whatever. She she finds out that he had broken up with his ex-girlfriend prior to coming on the show, right? And that he had spent some time with his ex, and maybe they were intimate, right? Prior to him coming on the show, right? And so she had an attitude about it. She was like, well, you were seeing your ex right before you came on the show and this and that. And so she started getting on him about it. And he's like, well, why are you attacking me? Right. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, what difference does it make if he was seeing someone prior to you? Right. Because the point is, he ain't seeing her anymore. The point is, um, he's seeing you. And supposedly he wants to marry you. So why in God's green earth do you give a rat's ass if he was seeing someone prior to you, right? That's the past, right? But nevertheless, she didn't want to drop it, right? She was like, "Well, I asked you about it, this and that." And he was kind of a little bit vague, maybe the dates was off a little bit, this and that, whatever. But the bottom line is he ain't seeing the woman no more, right? And she's getting on him about not like seeing someone prior to getting with her, right? And I just thought it was one of the most idiotic arguments you could have, right? Because whatever he did up until that show is the past, right? And I'm gonna, because listen, let's keep it real for a moment. There are people that go on these shows specifically to become popular, right? And nowadays with all of these content creators, right? Everybody and their mother want to be a content creator. My 13-year-old wants to be a content creator, right? So I get it, right? Everybody wants to be a content creator now. So there are people that go on these shows specifically because they want to get popular, right? And if you watch some of these shows, and I'm not great with names, but I won't forget your face, right? And I saw on one of these shows, this guy was on one show, and then he was on another reality show, right? So these people become reality show stars, right? And they go on from The Bachelor 1 minute, and then the next day, a month or two later, they're on Survivor, right? And then a month or two later, they're on Big Brother, right? And then a month or two later, they're on, Real Housewives and all this other kind of foolishness, right? So there are people that specifically want to just be popular. And so they go on those shows not for love, but they go on the shows to get popular. And then sometimes they do stuff because they know it's going to go viral and people are going to talk about it, you know? So, because look at what, um, what's the show with, Flavor of Love, right? if you ever remember back in the day, they had Flavor of Love with Flavor Flav, right? And he had these girls come on there. Listen, Love made a couple of people celebrities. They had welcome aboard, Miss Peggy, right? So their Flavor of Love, you had the girl, I think her name was Brooklyn, right? I think that's what he called Brooklyn, right? And then they had another girl that he called Hoops, right? Who went on to date Shaq. I don't I think they broken up by now, but they were together. And then they had another girl that was on there and her name was Delicious, right? She became like an internet sensation and stuff like that. So there are people that go online specifically to get that notoriety, right? They specifically go online because they know because the internet is powerful, right? The television is powerful. If you get on television, I could tell you this is a true story. Back in 1993, right? And if you look it up, it's probably on YouTube somewhere, right? I was on a panel discussion with Peter Jennings about gun control, right? And I happened to be on in the audience. Now, Peter Jennings was talking about gun control and stuff like that, and I happened to be in the background, right? The next day, right? People were noticing me on the street. They're like, "Yo, wasn't you on TV last night?" And I was like, "Yeah, I saw you," right? And I was just in the background. I was just in the audience. I didn't, say nothing, right? But just because they saw me in the background, people were like, "Yo, I saw you last night," right? So that's how powerful television is, right? Like these people go on reality shows and they become instant sensations, right? Look at the guy that was on American Idol. I forget his first name. I think his name was Hung. The Asian dude that was singing "She Bangs, She Bang." Right? I don't know if you guys remember that. This guy, he came out with the song and made money off of this, right? Like people were buying the foolishness, right? So that's how powerful television is, right? So, look, once again, back to what we were talking about was, sometimes there are folks that want to create drama because they're looking to get likes, right? They're looking to create a buzz. They're looking to get, go viral, right? Because let's keep it real. TikTok has changed the world, right? Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, that has changed the world. YouTube has changed the world because YouTube has made people who were in obscurity, if I wish I could sing, if I could sing, man, I tell you right now, I'd be singing all day long on YouTube because if you can sing on YouTube, people would share it, and eventually it's going to get to someone who has the ability to say, "Yo, we signing him." Look at Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber started on YouTube. He was singing on YouTube. I think he was singing some Usher songs or something like that. Usher saw it, got in contact with him, you know, signed him, and now, Justin Bieber's a millionaire, right? Because he can sing. These things happen now because of social media, right? So the internet, we can't, think that social media is not powerful. Social media is very, very powerful. And this is why I'm a big advocate of online dating, right? Because you might meet your partner who lives in another state, right? Like, look at these shows, right? And how are you doing this evening, Peggy?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't hear you, right? So, so tonight's topic, we're talking about, when do you introduce your kids to someone you're dating online, right? And my thought process is it really depends on the age of the kids. It depends on how many kids you have. It depends on how long you've been seeing the person, right? I don't think you should introduce your kids to anyone too quickly. I remember talking to a woman one time, a month and a half, 2 months, and she got an attitude because I refused to introduce it to my sons. Right? She like literally got an attitude. Like, when are you gonna introduce me to your kids? And I'm like, when I feel comfortable, when I think it's appropriate, right? And the fact that she wanted to meet my sons after a month and a half bothered me a little bit, right? Because I thought that that was entirely too soon, right? And, but I get why, some women might want to meet a person's kids quickly because they feel like if you meet a guy's kids, that might help solidify you, right? Like there's some women out
Mhm.
there who, and listen, guys ain't dummies. I'm going to keep it real. Like I shouldn't even mention this right now, right? But if you saw Waiting to Exhale, right? You remember in Waiting to Exhale, right? Um, Layla Rashawn's character, I don't remember her name in the film, right? But um, when the guy said, I want you to meet my mama, right? She changed. She was like, wow, you want me to meet your mother? Right? And instantly she thought to herself, this guy is really into me. Like maybe this is something that's genuine and is going to have staying power, right? So there are guys out there, listen, they will introduce you to their mama, right? And the woman's whole outlook changes, right? She's like, you introduced me to your mama, right? And I could just tell you, there are some women that are going to look at that like, oh, it puts me on a different level, right? Like he thinks of me differently than he thinks of some of his other women, right? And that's intentional. The guy ain't no dummy. He's like, "Psh, if I introduce her to my mama, please, she's going to act totally different, right? Because now she thinks you're serious and all that kind of stuff. So, you have to be careful. Guys, they're not dumb. They know if I introduce you, um, because a lot of guys, who are mama's boys, you know what I mean. They seek the approval of their mothers, right? So that's why women sometimes want to meet the kids because they feel like, all right, if I meet your kids and they like me, that gives me an in. And I don't think guys look at it the same way, to be honest with you. And for those guys watching, uh, my brother Corey, like Jason, like you guys watching, would you agree or disagree that, guys don't look at it the same way? Like, do you look at it from a perspective of you want to meet a woman's kids so that way you get in good with her? Like, I don't think so.
Mm.
I don't think guys look at it that way. I know I've never looked at it that way, but tell me if I'm wrong, right? Since we have some guys watching tonight, right? So what do you think, Peggy?
Can you hear me now?
Hmm?
Still can't
I
hear
can't
me?
hear you.
I don't know.
Are you on mute?
I'm not.
No, you're not gonna say anything.
I, I'm trying. You can't hear me. Let me call back.
Okay. So, um, so yeah. So anyway, that's my thought about it. Be very careful. Make certain that you do your due diligence. Um, before you attempt to introduce somebody. Uh, you can't hear me? Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. You can hear me. Okay. Great. So, right. Thank you. That's what I thought. Right. So my brother's saying it's not important that he meets the woman's kids. Yeah, I don't think it's important to guys to meet a woman's kids. Now I would think for some guys it might be more important to maybe meet the parents, right? Like if there's a woman that you're really interested in, right? And you really, want to like why is it not important to meet the woman's kids, right? Well, because you may not necessarily have interaction with the kids per se, right? You'd be surprised. Like especially a woman that has kids, right? If the father is still involved and you're just dating the woman, you might not meet the kids for a while because the kids might be at their father's house while you're dating the woman. So you might not meet the kids for a while, right? So that's why it's not as important now. Once the relationship kind of takes a turn, and let's just say gets more involved, then whoever is important to you, you might want that person to meet that person, right? Like, so for instance, if you're dating a woman and her best friend is her mama, right? You might want to meet her mama, right? If you meet a woman, you're involved with a woman, and the person that's closest to her is her father, you want to meet her father, right? Because you need the approval because that person is in that person's life. Um, exactly. That's exactly my point. So, because when you meet somebody, now with kids, yeah, kids are part of a package, but not until it gets to that next level, right? When it gets to that next level, then it becomes a package. And when I say the next level, I'm talking about potentially living with the person, obviously much further down the road, marrying the person, right? Like things like that, where you might start vacationing or things like that, or going to an amusement park together. So that's when you kind of need to introduce that person to your kids or to your parents and all that kind of stuff. But prior to that, you really don't need to. If you're going to the movies with the person, do they need to meet your kids? No. If you're going out to dinner with the person and stuff like that, do they need to meet your kids? No. Right. But if you're coming over for dinner, right, then you might need to meet the kids. Or if you're going with the guy to an amusement park with his kids, of course, the kids, you got to meet the kids then, right? So, in those instances, yes, you need to introduce your kids to the person. But once again, like I said, do your due diligence, make certain that the person, is, legitimate, make certain that, you know, you, anytime you're going to expose someone to your kids, you want to make certain that you're comfortable with the person, right? Because there's just too many things out there, right? And you don't want it to go, awry, so to speak. So you definitely want to be careful, right? So another topic that a viewer brought up was, and of course, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe. For those of you watching on TikTok, like, share, subscribe, things like that. Very, very important. Um, Another topic that came up was, what's the best way to tell someone you're not interested, right? Very interesting, right? Now, telling someone you're not interested is hard, right? Because who likes rejection, right? I don't know anyone who likes rejection, right? Now, I think guys, I think a woman can tell a guy she's not interested easier than a guy can tell a woman that he's not interested, right? That's just my opinion, right? Of course, right? And there's a reason for that, right? I think guys are accustomed to being rejected, right? Because think about it. Most guys, we're accustomed, at least in the old days, we were accustomed to approaching women, right? Like if you went to a club, right, and you saw an attractive woman, you would approach her and be like, "Hey, how you doing? What's your name?" Right? And you were prepared for her to say, "Not interested." You were prepared for her to say, "I got a man." Right? We were prepared for those type of things, right? Um, Women, I don't think they're prepared for rejection, right? Uh, uh, because I could just tell you, and I've heard guys say, when a woman has approached them and they said they're not interested, the woman gets offended, right? We don't guys. We don't get offended. I mean, usually, like if a woman says, "Sorry, I got a man. I'm not interested," or whatever, "Thank you," or whatever, the guy's like, "Okay." He kind of lives with it, right? He didn't like to be rejected, but he's kind of used to it. He's prepared for it. but not women. I can just tell you, there's a couple of women that I mentioned to them, nah, I like you as a friend, I'm not interested. And they got pissed off. They really got offended. They was like, what? No man has ever rejected me. Right. And I'm like, oh, okay. Right. And then you got to explain to them why you weren't interested. Right. And it becomes into this long, drawn out debate where guys, you tell a guy you ain't interested, he'd be like, okay. He just kind of lives with it. But I don't know, a couple of women that I've spoken to, they're like, they want to know why. Why? Why you not interested? Like, what did I do? And, you know, you don't know a good thing when you see it. And this and like, they start getting on you, right? Man, the guys was just like, okay. Like, we just kind of move on. So I don't know why women, I don't think women are accustomed to being rejected. And in fact, the
What?
more attractive a woman is, the more less likely she is to be rejected, right? Because she's used to guys kissing her ass. Let's keep it real. If you're an attractive woman, right, guys are throwing themselves at you all day, every day. You're walking down the street, they got, hey, how you doing, beautiful, this and that, right? Like, you're used to it. You're used to guys kind of kissing your ass. So if a guy, for whatever reason, deems, you're not a good fit for him, women get upset. They're like, what? How can you possibly reject me? Right? And then once again, you got to go into explaining why, right? You got to explain to a guy why. A guy just accepts it. He's like, all right, you got someone else. So I
No.
don't meet your criteria, something like that. At least that's been my experience. Now, obviously, I'm talking about from a male standpoint with approaching women. Now, if I'm wrong, by all means, because you got that look on your face, Peggy, like, what? Right?
Can you hear me this
And
time?
listen, you fall into that category as an attractive woman, right? So I'm sure when you go out and stuff like that, and guys see you and they're like, "Hey, girlfriend, how you doing?" Right? And you're like, "Not interested," right? They kind of accept it, don't they? They ain't harassing you and hounding you, are they? Because you rejected
Can
them,
you hear
they
me this
accept it,
time, sir?
right?
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you, so I don't know if you got your microphone covered or whatever. So I don't know
I
what you
don't.
saying, right? But I'm just saying, like, tell me if I'm wrong. Let's see. We asked,
No.
because it could be something we can work on. For the next, okay. So, all right. So you want to know why I reject you for the next guy? Now, I kind of get that, but why the hell do I need to help you with the next guy? Right? Like, I get it, you know, um, but guys don't necessarily want necessarily to help the woman. And it's so funny because I think I'm going to say about 3 or 4 women that I have met online, they're married. They're married now. So I'm like, wow. Like, they have met guys like this, right? So I think I'm a lucky charm, to be honest with you. I think I'm a lucky charm for some women because if things don't work out, with me and the person or what have you, they go on to meet someone else that's better suited for them. So I really feel like I'm a lucky charm, to be honest with you, right? So, but once again, guys, we're used to, and I've seen it numerous times, and even when I was younger and I would go out, I would see guys get rejected, right? One time I went to a club, right? This is a true story. One time I went to a club and there was this woman, she was really attractive and she was sitting off to the side, right? Very nicely dressed and everything, right? And when I tell you she rejected every single guy in the club, asked her to dance, every single guy, right? And every guy that came over was like, "Hi, how you doing? Would you like to dance?" She was like, "No." Right? And I swear to God, she rejected at least 30 guys that night, easy, right? And so I'm sitting off to the side with some of my coworkers, right? Because we had went to the club after work. It was a Friday night, right? And I just kind of sat there and was observing her. And I just thought it was really entertaining to watch this woman reject guys, right? Because what happens is when if a guy gets rejected in front of other people, um, he kind of loses his nerve, right? Like he don't want to approach other women because he's like afraid that he might get rejected. Like you almost have to shake it off, right? So later on that night, as I'm sitting there watching this woman reject 20 or 30 guys, right, at the club. So finally I went over to her, and I know she thought I was going to ask her if she wanted to dance. And I went over there and I said, I'm not asking you to dance. I just had a question, right? And I said to her, just out of curiosity, I've watched you reject 50 guys. She's like, oh, I haven't been that bad. I said, yes, you've rejected 50 guys tonight. I'm just trying to figure out what are you waiting for? Because every guy in here has approached you. And so she says, well, the reason why I rejected them is because I was waiting to hear my song. And I'm thinking, that's why you turned every single guy down, right? She's like, yeah, I want to hear my song. I want to dance to my song. So I said to her, well, what the hell is your song, right? She says she wanted to hear no. She wanted to hear Sensitivity by Ralph Tresvant, right? I was like, really? So I go to the DJ and I said, yo, can you put on Sensitivity by Ralph Tresvant? Right? And he's like, okay. So he puts on, a couple of songs later, he puts on Sensitivity by Ralph Tresvant, right? And then it comes on, it's you wanna get with sensitive, and she comes over and says, you wanna dance? And I was like, sure, right? And I'm telling you, every guy in the club was pissed off, right? Because they were like, how the hell did he get her to dance? Right? Because every single guy in the club got rejected, right? And so once again, it comes down to how you look at the problem, right? The problem wasn't she didn't want the guys. The problem was she didn't have the song on that she wanted to dance to. Right? So my point is, like we're used to rejection, and I can just tell you, the guys at the clubs, listen, most of them were rejected, this and that, and and just to wrap up the story, because people are wondering, well, what happened afterwards? Right, that was it. We danced a couple of songs, and good night, and I never spoke to her ever again in life. But my point is, we're used to rejection. Like we can deal with rejection. I don't. And if you ever watch Lifetime, right? And I'm a big advocate of Lifetime. I love watching Lifetime films, right? Because they always have like these crazy woman, stalkish women, or they have an ex-boyfriend who's crazy and this and that, right? And if you ever watch like Lifetime, it's always usually kind of like the woman that is rejected and can accept it, right? And these films, these Lifetime films, are a microcosm of how some women feel about rejection. They're not accustomed to rejection, and it's kind of like how life works in reverse, right? And this is kind of like how I look at things sometimes, right? The day you have a lot of money in your pocket, you don't know what to buy. You can have a ton of money in your pocket and you can't think of what to buy. You're like, man, what do I buy with all this money, right? But when your pocket is empty, you got 2 nickels in your pocket, you could think of a million things you need to buy, right? The day that you get up early for work and you leave your house to go to work, there's no traffic. You're early that day, there's no traffic. The day you get up late for work is the day there's a bunch of traffic. Life works in reverse, right? It's real crazy how things are. And it's just like that with dating sometimes. The people you want don't want you.
Can you
And
hear
the
me now?
people that you do want, right, they don't want you, right? And then the people that want you, you don't want. It works in reverse sometimes. It's crazy how things work out like that, right? And so when you do meet someone that, you really vibe with and all that kind of stuff, you got to hop on it, right? Because there is no great way to tell a person you're not interested, right? I think sometimes you just have to kind of take it on the chin, right? I think sometimes you just have to kind of come out and say, I don't think we're a good match, right? Um, and like there's this show. It's called Aging Daters on Netflix. I think it's called Aging Daters, right? And this woman, when I tell you, she went ahead and rejected this guy the worst way I think I've ever seen a guy rejected, right? I must admit, it was horrible, right? She should be ashamed of herself, right? She goes on a date with this guy. She meets him online. She goes on a date with the guy, right? Now, the guy, granted, he did say some stupid stuff. I have to give her that. He did say some stupid stuff, right? Like he told her, he wanted a woman that's a little ghetto, right? And so she kind of took a little offense to the fact that he said, he wanted someone ghetto. And then, he looked at her and he was like, man, you got a great body on you or something like that for your age. And so she's like, wasn't really feeling him, right? What does she do? She says to him, I got to go to the restroom. She goes to the restroom, orders an Uber. And then when she comes out, instead of sitting down and finishing the meal, she's like, yo, my Uber's outside. I got to go. And the guy is like, what? And she just left him right there at the restaurant, right? Without, furthering the date, not saying goodnight, this and that. She just left, right? And the guy, I mean, of course, he was taken back by it, but he accepted it. He was like, oh, okay. He was kind of speechless, right? Imagine a guy doing that to a woman, right? Like, I recall a woman telling me once she went out on a date with this guy, right? And, you know, I think she must have thought she was going to get a free meal, right? Because she goes on a date with this guy and she's ordering, crab legs and lobster and all this other kind of stuff, right? And the guy, they was at a steakhouse, right? And the guy, after they ate and everything, he excuses himself and he's like, I got to go to the restroom. He goes to the restroom and he leaves. And he leaves her with the bill, right? And she's like in shock, right? And I felt, when she told me the story, I felt horrible for her because, that's like so low. Like, I don't think any guy should do something like that. Leave a woman with the bill. Like, if you're not really feeling the woman and all this other kind of stuff, then by all means, tell her like, I'm not feeling you and move on. But don't leave her stuck with the bill. That was, horrible, right? But yeah, that was a true story, right? So, what's the best way? Um, I know a lot of people, or I hear this often. A lot of guys ghost women, right? And I kind of think women don't ghost guys. I think they just block them, right? You ain't interested in the guy? Do you just block him, right? Correct me if I'm wrong for those folks watching. Because me personally, I've never really blocked a woman online. My number hasn't changed and stuff like that. Now, what I will do is if I'm not interested in you, I'm just not calling you, right? Like once once I feel like the it's not mutual anymore, like if I feel like I'm doing all the work, I'm sorry, I'm just not gonna call you, right? And I think most women kind of get the hint pretty quickly, right? Like most women, if they don't hear from a guy after a couple of days, I kind of think they assume the guy ain't interested, right? Like I kind of think that because most of the time, if you don't speak to a woman, I'm gonna say at least 3 days. You go 3 days without talking to her. You don't call her. You don't text her. Nothing like that. I think most women assume the guy's not interested. Correct me if I'm wrong. And most women kind of get the hint. They're like, screw him. I ain't calling him, right? Um, I don't know. And I would think, especially women in the South, because women in the South suffer from what I call the Southern Belle mentality, right? They kind of expect the guy to do a lot of the heavy lifting, right? They expect the guy to do a lot of the calling and pursuing and stuff like that. And that's not the case in New York, though. In the East, the Northeast, I'm going to call it, women are much more aggressive, right? Like they'll pick up the phone like, "Hey, how you doing? What's up? Like, what you doing on Monday? Let's go out." Like, I'm serious. Like women, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I love it. I really love it, right? Because there's no gray areas with women in the Northeast. Like they specifically tell you what they want, what their desires are. Like if they want you, they tell you. They are not pulling. They ain't pulling no punches. The women in the South, I hate to say, and don't get me wrong, this is not every woman in the South, but I'm going to say a vast majority, a good percentage, right? Because I don't want to put everybody in this, in this category, but a strong percentage of women expect the guy to do a lot of the heavy lifting, right? They expect him to be calling, they expect them to, you know, you want to go out, this and that, right? And they don't want to initiate, right? And it can get frustrating, right? I could just tell you, like, you, I mean, I'm a planner, so I don't want to have to plan the dates all the time. I want someone that it can be reciprocal, right? I can plan it, you plan it sometimes. You know what I mean? I'll decide on where we go out to go out to dinner. You decide where we're going to go out to dinner occasionally. Like I don't want to have to do it all the time. And the women in the South, a lot of them want you to do it all the time. Where the women in the East, Northeast, no. They like, yo, meet me at such and such. Let's go to BBQ tonight. Let's go here. Let's go there. Like they have this aggressiveness that I think guys in the Northeast appreciate and like, right?
Prayer, can you hear me?
And I get that. You know, if you're from the South and you're accustomed to dealing with guys from the South, and you deal with guys that are not from the South, let's say you deal with a guy from California. A guy from California is probably going to act a little differently. I don't know because I ain't from California, but a guy from Northeast expects the woman to be a little bit more aggressive. He appreciates it. He likes it. So when you kind of come up against some women in the South, you are like that laid backness that you almost kind of you don't know how to deal with it, right? Because you like a woman to kind of stress her point. You like a woman to initiate and stuff like that, right? So once again, there's no great way. And I must admit, just a funny story. One time, I went on a meet and greet. I met this woman. Um, it was the first time I was meeting her, and we had only spoken the night before briefly because it was late. I was getting tired. I said, you know what, I'm getting tired, isn't it? And so she's like, well, what are you doing tomorrow? So I was going to a free concert in Savannah. And I said, well, I'm going to a free concert. So she's like, hey, you know what? Why don't we meet there, right? So she comes to meet me at the free concert, and her personality was really kind of wasn't feeling her. And I mean, as I did something real dumb, and I would never do this again, right? So, me and her was supposed to go out to dinner afterwards, right? So I called my daughter. I was like, "Call me exactly at 8:15," right? And so my daughter calls me at 8:15, and when my daughter calls me, I say, "Oh my God, really?" All right, and I tell the woman, "All right, I gotta go." Right, and she's like, "What? You gotta go?" I was like, "Yeah, my daughter locked herself out of her car, and I gotta go." And she's like, "Okay." And instead of me just telling her that I wasn't interested, I took the chicken way out. Quack, quack, quack. Right, I took the chicken way out. Right, And then later on that night, she calls me. She's like, "Hey, did you tell me that to get away from me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." She's like, "Ah, you should have just told me." Right. And I was like, "Yes, you're right. I should have just told you." Right. So, I took the chicken way out. And there's some guys out there that will take the chicken way out. Like, as opposed to just telling a woman, "I'm not interested," this and that. You know what I mean? Like, they'll just kind of ghost her a little bit and stuff like that. Me personally, I don't believe in ghosting anyone. That's why my number hasn't ever changed. Now, when someone reaches out to me and they're like, "Well, I haven't heard from you in a little long time." Okay. Once again, I'll say, ain't nothing wrong with your hand, right? So if I haven't heard from you, you didn't hear from me the same way I didn't hear from you, right? So the same way you ain't pick up the phone to call me, I ain't pick up the phone to call you, right? And so, that's what happens. But I think the best way is just to be honest, right? You can't, you know, it doesn't, there's nothing wrong with telling someone, you know what, um, this isn't working out. Now, there are other ways to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, I've heard women say stuff like, "I'm not in the right mental frame right now for dating." Right? What does that mean? Right? What is the right mental frame for dating? Right? But it's effective, right? Like, a guy, because it's so ambiguous, he don't know, well, what's the right mental frame? Right? So, great way to get rid of someone, right? Or you could tell them, "Listen, I'm doing something, I'm pursuing something right now. It's going to take a lot of my time. I don't want to, hold on to you when there's someone out there that's, ideally suited for you," right? So these are other ways to kind of tell someone that things aren't working out, right? Um, so once again, let me just remind folks to like, subscribe, share, follow us every Wednesday here on the Good, the Bad, the Odd Online Dating Podcast. And also, if you want to join the show, feel free to inbox me. Send me your email address. I will send you a link so you can come on the show. Because, yeah, I want people to share their online dating experiences. And going forward, you will see different people come on and talk about their online dating experiences. Because I think it's really interesting that people hear some of the different experiences people have. Because we learn from experiences. And even if these experiences aren't necessarily something we experience, if someone else experienced it, um, it works out pretty well, right? So I'm a big advocate, and like I said, definitely inbox me, DM me, and all that kind of stuff. And let me ask, because this is something I'm probably going to ask next week, and I'm going to end the show kind of like asking this question because does DMing people, like going into people's inbox, does that work? Right? Because like there's this thing on Instagram, right? It's called Thread, right? I think it's called a thread or something like that, right? And I see these guys like throwing themselves at women, right? Some of these pictures are like internet generated pictures. I kind of laugh because these guys act like they can't tell that these are internet generated pictures, right? Or they act like they can't tell that I can tell a scam a mile away, right? You look at someone's profile and they have the same picture on there every single time. In all likelihood, it's probably a scam, right? But anyway, you see it, these folks, they're like throwing themselves at these women, right? And I'm like, does anyone actually meet anyone like that? Like a guy, if he inboxes you, right? If he DMs you, do you actually respond? Right? Because I've never DM'd nobody, right? Like, and it's so funny because about a month ago, this woman, she DMs me, right? And she's like, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "Hi," right? And because I'm from New York, I have to admit, I'm very skeptical when someone DMs me because most women I don't think do that, right? So when a woman DMs me, I'm automatically very skeptical, right? So anyway, the woman DMs me, she's like, "Hi, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Hi," right? And I ain't gonna lie to you. The first thing I said was, "What are you selling?" Right. And so here she is with the, well, have you looked into Forex and some stocks and this and that? And I'm like, not interested, right? Because to me, I look at those things, I hate to say this, and I'm not saying there aren't people out there who haven't made money off of stuff like that, but I'm very skeptical. I kind of look at those things as scams. I'm very cognizant of, pyramid schemes and, giving people too much information and all that kind of stuff. You've got to be kind of careful, right? And so, um, I kind of think, hold on.
Craig, can you hear me now?
You have to be really careful with that. So for me, when someone,
Mhm.
inboxes me and all that kind of stuff, always feel like there's some sort of ulterior motive. So that's why I'm thinking, when someone inboxes you or DMs you, do women respond? Like, is that a viable way for you to kind of meet someone? Like, I'm gonna go on the assumption most women, I think, ignore them. Like, do you not ignore them, or does it really work? Like, does DM really work? So, because I need to know, because um, I hear guys always trying it. I don't see anyone being successful doing it. So I need to like let the brothers know, like, yo, that, excuse my language, that shit don't work. Like, why are you even bothering, right?
It
To
doesn't. It
DM,
works
because
sometimes.
the woman has, she just will ignore it, right? So why even
That's
bother? To me,
true.
I kind of think it almost, I hate to say it cheapens you, but it makes a guy seem desperate, to DM somebody like, "How you doing? What's your name? Can I call you? Here's my number," and all this other kind of stuff. Like, I just kind of feel like it cheapens a guy. What do you think? Do you think it cheapens a guy? Peggy, do you
No,
think it cheapens a guy if he's DMing you,
not
or
at
he's
all.
just enamored by your beauty?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Oh,
Do
you can
do
hear
you
me now?
respond to guys that DM you?
Yes. If it's a worthy conversation,
Huh?
yes.
You do?
Yeah. DM
Yeah.
doesn't. Yeah, a DM doesn't bother me. I
Okay.
mean, as long as it's
Your,
worthy.
your sound isn't working, so I can't hear you. All right. So I don't know. Maybe you're on mute or something. Right.
You can be
But
muted.
for those folks, please let me know. Um, oh, so it depends on what they're saying. Okay. Well, let's just say the guy is saying, you're beautiful. Because I mean, I've seen guys online say, where are you from? Because I don't think you can always tell where a person is from. So I see that happening where the guy is like, where you from? And I guess if they're near each other, I guess conceivably, I guess they could kind of meet up, right? But anyway, I want to thank everyone who joined the show today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for those folks watching on YouTube. Thank you for those folks watching on TikTok. Thank you for those folks watching on Facebook, right? We're here every Wednesday at 9 p.m. where we discuss relationships, the likes and dislikes of online dating. Um, check out the Good, the Bad, and the Odd Online Dating Podcast right on YouTube, and check out some of the previous shows. I think you're going to find some really interesting things on previous shows. Check it out wherever podcasts, wherever you enjoy your podcasts and stuff like that. Tonight we discussed, how to um, say you're not interested with someone, and also how quickly do you introduce your kids to someone, right? So I want to thank everyone who joined. My name is Craig Palmer, the host of the Good, the Bad, and the Odd online dating podcast. I will see you here again next Wednesday at 9 p.m. All right. And so thank you for joining. Have a nice night, everyone.
Now, I need to figure out why this thing is not. How do you leave? Testing, testing, testing.
Hi, Peggy. Check your camera.
Oh, I'm still trying to find out why. Wait. Okay.
All right. 'Cause I mean, there we go.
Can you
See?
hear me now?
See, what did you do? I can hear you now. So what happened?
I didn't do anything.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I didn't do anything. You just kind of came in.
And okay, hold on. Okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna do it from my computer. Can you
Can you
hear
hear
me?
me? Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. But I think I can hear you from the original, the way you got on. There's an echo.
Okay, hold on. Okay,
All
can you
right.
hear me from here?
Now, yeah, I can hear you now.
It's something. It's something you did. You had me muted some kind of way because that's my computer. This is my phone. I just logged back onto the computer. Like I could see my little thing going back and forth. Still, it
Right.
was. I was like,
Yeah,
you
I
got
mean,
me.
because what happens is I can like there's like a little microphone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I can see it, and it has three lines. That means that you're not muted. And then there's like a gauge that shows when you're talking, and that gauge wasn't going up and down, and it wasn't nothing I did. So I
It
don't
was.
know.
It was going up and down for mine, and then I mean, because this is
See, like right now, I can't hear you. Something happened. You just clicked on
I muted
something.
you.
Oh, okay. So that's what was happening. So somehow you had it muted on your end.
No. Matter of fact, it tells me if I press down.
Right now, you're muted.
Now I'm not. Right. I
Now
can
you're
see
not.
that here.
And
Unmuted.
that's how you were in the show. So I
But
don't know.
listen, I did both the phone and the computer. It was something
Mm.
on your end this time because I was like, why can't he hear me? I called from
I
my
didn't
phone.
press anything.
I called from my work phone and it was still muted. So I was like, yeah, he got me muted some kind of way.
You know. But well, it was nice to see you while you were there.
Oh no, because I
Mm.
wanted to get in on some of that conversation. I was like, what?
Yeah, I
Okay.
wanted you to get in on it too because, like I said, guys are used to rejection, women aren't. But I wanted your spin on it.
Guys are used to rejection. Women aren't. Yes, we are. We
I don't
reject.
know. Every woman that I've ever kind of, not
I
let
don't
me
know what
not
kind
say
of
every
women you be
woman, but
meeting. Where you be meeting these women at?
online.
That the best place to meet people. That's the facade of who we want to be, who we can be. It's just not the real us.
But you know
Sometimes.
what? And what you're saying isn't necessarily wrong, but you got to understand something. The same way you meet someone online is the same way you meet them in person, right? Like there was this Lifetime movie, right? Where the guy, matter of fact, there's this movie, right, that you should check out. And if you get a chance to check it out, let me know what you think. And it's called Fake. Did I tell you about that?
Faked.
Fake. It's on Tubi, right? It's called Fake. Fake, right? So
Uh,
watch that one because it's about this chick that meets a guy online, right? And he's telling her all of these things and stuff like that, and he's fake, right? But that's just the same way if he had met her at the bar and he's telling her all these type of things. The same way he was acting, when he met her online, is the same way he would have acted had he met her in person.
mm, but there's a different type of connection when you meet somebody online. I feel like meeting them in person, you kind of get a general. Let me see, because when I meet a person um, in person, I can instantly tell if I'm not attracted to that person. I mean, he could be a handsome guy, but if he doesn't know how to carry a conversation, if he doesn't know how to be respectful, I'm gonna get that. Nine times out of ten, men that I've met online, we could have a great conversation for a while, a
Hmm.
great conversation for a while, but um, there. I mean, you don't get a true vision of who that person is. You can really be anybody you want to be, you know. You can meet me in
And it's
person, and I could give you a different character that I played in a heartbeat, and you really
right. I
never know
mean,
the
well,
difference. But
you're an actress, and I mean,
everybody's an
obviously, you
actress.
you can you can be in character very easily. And listen, there are people out there who are actors in their own mind, right? Like I have a friend of mine who I call the chameleon, and he becomes whatever you need him to become, right? If he meets you, and let's just say you have a cross around your neck, right? He can recite scriptures, right? And some women respond to that. They're like, "Oh my God, he's a godly man," right? And if you got kids, he automatically becomes the family man. Oh, let's take the kids to great adventures, and let's take them here, and let's take them there, right? And if you're a businesswoman, he talks about business, right? He becomes whatever you need him to be to get with you, right?
That's why I need to
And
meet.
uh,
That's why I need to know. I think online, miles away from people you never really know. It's just for me now, and like I said, it ain't for everybody. That's just for me. Because my
mm-hmm,
girlfriend got married. Both of my girlfriends married somebody met online. But
mm-hmm,
for me, it does take a. I do watch a lot of Lifetime movies. I
mm-hmm.
probably watch too many Tubi movies. I probably played in too many myself. But it is just. I don't feel like you. I don't think I want to risk um, the person who I'm meeting online, as opposed to the person that I meet in person, because I'm gonna do some research on you. I gotta see
And
some friends. I gotta check your social media pages. I need to really see you in person, how you react to me.
mhm.
You
Right, and
know,
like I said, you heard me say, do your due diligence. You know what I mean? So there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, one time I was talking to this woman, and she's like, I did some research on you. I said, you did? She's like, yeah. And she went to my YouTube and saw my radio show. She went online, bought my book, all kind of stuff. I was like, man, that you did a lot, right? She's like, yeah, I need to know you was legitimate. I'm like, okay. So, I mean, there are women that do research like that, which is fine. I have no, because I have nothing to hide, but I get it. There are people out there who are scammers, right? So, but anyway, let me rock and roll because I need to get in the shower. I got to hit the sheets because I got to get up early.
I'm right behind you.
But thank you for joining because I know you was fighting the urge to go to sleep.
Oh, I'm about to hop in the shower and go to bed right now.
I hear you. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Well, have a good night. All
Good
right.
night.
And we will talk soon.
All right.
All righty. Good night.